Now we are moving on to capital and special projects, and I believe we'll be starting with Coach Klafka.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all. Appreciate your time. Coach Corsi's going to run a PowerPoint for us that we put together. It'll follow the handout that I've placed in front of everybody. Probably the main thing in there is we have pictures of items and issues that we're talking about. Understand what we put together here is I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as possible, keep it within 15 minutes just to respect everybody else's time. So if there's questions, I'm going to try to roll through it as quick as I can. If there's questions that you have, I'll stop immediately and we can answer those, or I can take questions at the end as well. We understand we're not entitled to any of this stuff. We just want to give you an idea of the issues that we have in front of us that we're dealing with and looking at. Some of the quotes of people that we tried to contact, we couldn't get here in time to give us actual quotes on some stuff, fencing and some other items that we have in here. So if there's a blank beside it, that's the reason why. First, we have general needs, what we feel like are general needs for us that address all kids. On the top of that list is a field house. We just find the great importance in the field house. As we go through our list, it's going to address a lot of issues that we're talking about. I believe when Coach Flowers was here and Coach Corsi was with him, he put together blueprints for a field house that approximated around about $5 million, what they were looking at the time.
It was a field house with an indoor attached on the back of it, everything.
Yes. So those are our 2010 numbers that we're looking at there. That gives you a ballpark figure there. But again, address locker rooms issues. We have locker room issues with both boys and girls. Probably the big office issues for both boys and girls coaches. The greatest thing that it gives us access to, though, is indoor use. Weather in the springtime here, we can't. There's a lot of days we just can't get things done. Weather over winter, there's a lot of things at times that we just can't get things done. I believe us and Dalhart are the only schools in the district in this area that do not have indoors. So I think that shows you the priority of indoor use in our area. Girls locker room. Addition or space added to it. This is a picture of our JV girls locker room. It's just not near big enough when you get kids in there. It's a little bitty. We have 2 locker rooms available for in-season girls. Varsity locker room, and then this one, all the off-season girls are basically put into a PE locker room. So this is picture really doesn't do it the justice. It's a little bitty area. Boys locker room. Issues, we have issues with our lockers are getting pretty beat up. So we have pads that are torn, some issues like that. Our flooring in our varsity locker room, I believe Coach Hug, those are examples of lockers. We were at Borger last week for a track meet. Those are new lockers that they put in. About $500 a piece is what you're looking at for those type of lockers.
It comes with the lock box. I thought that was really important, with a lock box in there, that we don't have to give the kids a lock. It comes with it, and you can set the combination to what the kid wants. So.
Our lockers in particular are just getting to a point where we're going to have to do something with them. Flooring again in our varsity locker room. It's carpeted flooring. Our ladies do a fantastic job. They clean it every day, and it's pretty dingy and nasty. Weight room issues that we're dealing with right now. The greatest thing is probably space. We've got some space issues. When we start getting kids in there, Booster Club put an upstairs in for us, which is fantastic. But it's an upstairs, downstairs, and we're trying to get kids upstairs and downstairs, and it's kind of a nightmare sometimes to get kids in and out of it. Benches, our equipment in our weight room is getting to a point where we're going to have to do something. The vast majority of our benches have holes or rips that are started in, and you can kind of see some of our flat benches there. We have incline benches are the same way. They're getting rips and tears in them. I've been at places that have tried to go in and just redo those, reupholster them per se, and it just doesn't last. The cost effectiveness was, in my experience, hasn't been good. They didn't hold up very well when we did that to them. Whiteboards are really, really nice to have in weight rooms, so you can put workouts up there, etc. You can see our whiteboards kind of busted and torn up there.
That's just a weather deal. Like, we came in one morning after everything had been locked up, and it just pops, I guess, with it.
It was over winter when it gets really, really cold and there's not, and that downstairs, it doesn't get much heat, so, or air, so it just, I think the climate changes maybe. And I'm sure probably a bar hit it at one time. Some equipment needs that would be nice to have. This is a super cat. This would be something that would be beneficial to our kids. Sound system in the weight room doesn't work. You can turn it up to a certain point and it always shuts off on you. So when you get 40 kids in there and you try to turn the sound system up, you can't hear it. You can't get it up loud enough to hear it. Flooring in the weight room, we kind of have patchwork flooring that we've kind of moved in and moved out, and you can just see it doesn't cinch up real good. Seam-lined flooring would be nice to have. Some of our bars are getting in really bad shape. We have about approximately 20 bars in the weight room. There's 5 to 10 of them that aren't bent to some degree. So we're dealing with issues of replacing bars. Our weights are getting in bad shape, rubber weights and 5-pound weights. We're low on 5-pound weights. That's an example of one of our rubber weights just from use over time. They're so old they've got to a point now where they're starting to bust and tear. And rubber weights are essential. Coaches' needs. Now these coaches, weight room space goes back to an indoor. Boys' locker room, girls' locker rooms go back to a field house and an indoor. Coaches' offices and desks and chairs and so on can be addressed through an indoor facility. You can kind of see some of the stuff that we're putting our coaches in now. Some of those desks are decent, stand up fine. Some of them are propped up. Some of them are mint colored and look really nice. So it's just we have issues we'd like to address. Chairs, you can kind of see some of the chairs that we're putting coaches in right now. They're just old. They're just old and need to be replaced. Moving on to air conditioning. Booster Club is trying to help address this need for us. Air conditioning in the gym. Understand something about the gym. It is a basketball gym, it is a volleyball gym, but it's also a multi-purpose facility. I mean, the gym, unlike most places, is used year-round. I mean, we put people in there all the time. Elementary is going to use it some. We'll use it for volleyball. We use it for basketball. We use it for stuff that the high school needs to use it for. So there's people constantly in it. So it's not just necessarily an athletics thing or a basketball thing. I think this is something that we just need to address right now. And the way I understand the quotes on the air conditioning in the gym, it's not encompassing offices or locker rooms right now. My suggestion would be, if we're not going to do something within that, let's get some portable units maybe for those offices. Because if you try to sit in that basketball coach's offices or in Coach Corsi's office during the summer, it's miserable. It really is. I mean, you just sit in there in a sweat. Locker room, same thing. If we're not going to address those with what Booster Club's looking to help us with, let's look at getting some porta-cool fans or something like that. I called Mr. Blackshear. He's the one that gave me these numbers. He said the porta-cool fans could do a good job in the locker rooms. You talk about a football team sitting shoulder to shoulder with shoulder pads on in August and September, and it gets on the thermostat 80, 90 degrees in that locker room. It's not a good situation. Our Kubota is something that we use all the time in football season and in the spring. It's something that we feel like is just essential to have to get kids on and off the field if they ever get injured. It's about on its last leg. I think we probably have a year, maybe two best with this Kubota, or John Deere, or whatever direction we go in with it. But you're looking at approximately the cost shown there. Off-season replacement uniforms. Booster Club 2 years ago, when I first got here, we didn't have just stuff to put kids in that matched. Our junior high was in really poor shape with uniforms, putting kids in every day. They spent approximately almost $20,000 starting us over fresh. And this is just normal everyday use of kids being in athletics. This is a high school board. We're in a situation now where we need to start replacing those. And if you do that, I mean, you can kind of see the cost there. It's a big chunk, and that's just something that we don't have set aside necessarily in our budget right now to address. Last thing here under school housing needs. or under general needs is we feel like as a coaching staff that school housing is something that we need to start looking into as a district. We just think it's really, really important in terms of recruiting people and getting people to take jobs here. The greatest thing that we talk, or the most challenging thing that we talk about when we get guys and families especially in on interviews is almost always the first question, well, how's housing? Well, it's hard to come by. It's on the higher end of most places that you'll see. So if we could do something towards school housing, so that I think it really gives us a competitive edge to get people to take jobs. Just one more thing to help us get people to take jobs here, we think is really, really important. Is the only reason that we put it down. Moving on to Ranger Field, I think everybody that's been to a football game will agree our sound system is just really hard to hear sometimes, a lot of times. Pampa's speaker, if y'all are familiar with the speaker they just put in on the south end of their field, that was approximately $40,000 of what they put in there. Borger, of course, just built a brand new facility. The price there, the only difference is theirs is ADA compliant. From what we understand in talking to them, is because it was a new project, so they had to be compliant with hearing impaired and all sorts of issues that I'm probably not educated enough to talk to you about it exactly. That's the difference in the cost, really. Press boxes. Our press boxes, this is on the home side, are getting in bad shape on the inside. So you can see some of the walls have issues of things we need to address with them. The windows in the press boxes are double pane. Condensation is in there almost all the time. So if you're in a situation where you have to shut the bottom window, there's a lot of spots you just can't see out of. Radio stations use these. John Elsie has made comments about them to me. It's just an issue I think we need to look to address. Obviously, we have a concession and bathrooms down. This, again, can go back to a field house. Possibly could help address these needs of concession and bathrooms. Our scoreboards, football, baseball, softball are in need. Football's a little bit different. It could be refurbished. It's still to the point that it could be refurbished so that it's at full usage. Baseball and softball are a little bit different than that. Rock around our stadium is an issue. This is a drainage on the north end. And Alan and those guys clean them out on a fairly regular basis, but especially in springtime when we get a lot of rain, that thing's not going to drain and that water makes its way out on the track and just sits there. So it's causing issues on our track for us. That rock also almost always ends up out on the new turf in the football field in the form of piles and all sorts of other things. So the rock is an issue that I think we need to look at addressing. Electrical outlets at the football field. These are built into the ground. The issue here that is a lot of these, the majority of these are not in use most of the time because of the black filament from the turf, the black rubber from the turf get into the electric blocks because of the way they're sitting. Now, the way I understand it is Alan and those guys have tried to put caps on top of those to keep the rubber out, but these just have lids that sit down on them. So anybody and everybody gets into them and do all the time. We find trash and everything else in them all the time, and those things just get broken off on a regular basis. So if we could look at turning them to the side so that those electrical outlets are actually functional majority of the time, will really help out. We looked at pricing it when we did the turf. For the turf people to do it, it was just going to be a cost that didn't want to look at the time. It's maybe something that our people could do. I don't have those answers exactly, but I think it's something that we need to look into. Our track, we're having issues with our track. It was resurfaced 5 years ago. But when they resurfaced it, they didn't seal it around the edges. So now some of the issues that you're seeing are because of that. So we're getting quite a few cracks in it. If we don't address these issues, we're going to have to end up replacing the track at some point. So I think the cracks need to be addressed as quickly as possible. You can do, from what we understand and have looked at, you can do patchwork to those cracks. There's a bucket that's supposed to cover 11 square feet, and it's about $500 a bucket to cover 11 square feet. We have quite a few cracks in it right now that would need to be addressed. Or we could bring something that maybe Islands guys can do, or maybe we could bring a company in to look at doing it for us. But I do think it's something that when you look at it, we're probably looking at a new track in a feasible amount of time.
What should the life of that track have been if everything was done right?
I don't know
I
if I
can't
have that
necessarily
exact
answer that. I
answer.
know, so, right here, this is what he's talking about. This is almost all the way around. That should have been sealed, right there, and I don't guess it was done. I don't know, I didn't pay attention. That's what Coach Schoenberger told me earlier today. I vaguely remember them redoing it 5 years ago, but not enough to speak on. But that's what he's talking about, is the seal just around the edge, so now water gets under there, and you're causing all sorts of problems.
Where's that crack right there at?
The one on the right?
That one's on the south end, southwest.
It's not on the
south-
track, it's on
The southwest end on that,
the field event
correct.
part.
The jump pads on the south and southwest.
But there's not any big crack like that across any of the,
Not that, so that's high jump area right there. One of those, the one on the right, looks like it's right around some lanes. I don't have that exact answer. Somebody else took these pictures for us.
The biggest issue that we're seeing on the actual running surface is on home side, about 50-yard line, we have a hump that started developing in it. And that's from base work. So that's probably a big project. The only immediate thing to the running lanes would be the hump. Most of the other cracks are around the edges and field events and that sort of thing. Moving on to some football needs. Vast majority of football teams right now have Endzone cameras. Endzone cameras are what you see there. Gives the coaches a different view. Those things are just really expensive, and it's not something we've been able to work into a budget thus far. Lineman shoots are something to be very beneficial for us. Again, it's just a great cost. Trainers needs right now. Again, just things that have gotten old and need to be replaced. Vacuum splints. That's about $800 that you're looking at there. Coach Aruta's patched holes in the one that he has now. Our water cowls that we use in football and in spring. The one on the left, that's the one we have. Those tires get flat all the time. Batteries die. There's a new one there on the right, and again, we need about 4 of them. You'd really like 2 on each sideline and 2 on each end zone, just availability of kids. AEDs is something that we have down. Dr. Lewis said the other day he's going to take care of this. The only reason it was down, we didn't have them at the actual baseball and softball fields. Coach Aruta took them with us all the time. Takes them to those places, but that's something that we're going to address right now. Volleyball, some issues in regards to volleyball right now. The net system that goes up in the Rangerette, they have issues with it. Sometimes it goes up right and it's just old. It needs to be replaced. Netting systems are expensive, about $3,500. We need new stands for volleyball as well that the officials stand on. We don't have one currently in the Rangerette. The one in the Ranger is wobbly. We kind of patched it together at the start of this year. The ones at the junior high aren't in very good shape either, so it's just something that we feel like we need to address. Ranger Gym, have an idea, and it's only an idea right now, but one of the greatest things as a basketball coach is home court advantage. Home court advantage is from a student section being down court level and involved in a game. But we also have reserve seating that's down. So an idea that we've come up with to address both needs, maybe best of both worlds, is come in and put bleachers a lot like Pampa has on the backside of where the team sits. So against that wall that the team sit on the south side. If you're able to do that, you could probably get 3 or 4 rows of bleachers in there, move some of the reserve seating over there, put some of our student section down on the floor. Maybe it's a win-win for everybody. Maybe we get to keep the reserve seating down on the floor, and then we're able to get our student section down close to the court as well. Again, it's just an idea that we've come up with that I think would be greatly beneficial for us right now. If you went to our game when we're playing for the district championship at Pampa this year, and those kids are right there on you, man, it's a tough environment. It's a really, really tough environment. That's something I would like to see in our gym someday. And it was a packed house. It was a lot of fun, good situation, but I'd like to see that in reverse at our place. Our side goals are getting in really, really poor condition. You can see all 4 of them there are different. We've replaced a couple of them. The greatest issue that we're having right now is them being able to go up and down. You see our braces are bent and they're just old. If we put new backboards on there, and Alan thinks that part of some of our issues are from the bent bracing. The issue that we're having is he's replaced a motor that you'll see here in just a second, and he's replaced 3 or 4 solenoids within that through this year because it's just getting old and they're getting in a bind because of the bent braces and so on. It's just something that we've got to look at addressing. He's continuing to patch it, but I'm assuming those costs are adding up on him as well. Rette Gym is our multi-purpose gym. We're getting numerous holes, cracks in it, as you see there. I think there is a possibility that we could do some patchwork on the holes that are occurring, the cracks and things like that. Probably the only thing that completely fix those is just a new surface altogether. Alan tells me that the cracks aren't necessarily an immediate issue. They'll be an issue over time, the more that they refinish that for us every summer. Baseball needs and issues. Our scoreboard is to a point now where we can't get parts for it. They can't be replaced. So the issues we have with it are just the issues. They can't be fixed. We called the scoreboard company at the start of this year. Their response was, and we gave them the model number and so on, because that thing's so old, we can come out there and we can look at it. And the number just to get them out here and look at it was too high. They're going to have to do a lift and so on. And they said, even if they get out here, there's a good chance they can't get it fixed just because of how old it is. So at some point, we're going to need to replace it. Outfield fence at baseball, you can see, is in not real good shape. There's some braces and stuff that aren't even attached where they're supposed to attach right now. Fencing is an issue that we need to look at addressing. Softball field is one of our greatest needs. You see the picture on the left, that was the rain over spring break, and that wasn't a monsoon that came through. I mean, it was just a fairly average rainfall. That's the way it collects water on us right now. So the issues there, and what we've looked into is there's always the option of turf. You can turf the softball field. It's a good option. Softball coaches in general aren't like Coach Cowan. You know, Coach Cowan, baseball field's his baby. Most softball coaches you're going to hire aren't going to have that expertise of keeping a softball field to that extent. So turf would be a really good option in terms of maintenance over time. Some other things that we've looked at is you could lower the outfield to help with the issue of water pulling on the infield. You could raise the infield, and that cost is there for you. Or this is what Splint did several years ago to their older baseball, softball fields, and they just leveled it all and started back over. This addresses some of the dugout needs and stuff like that. Water collected in the dugouts, or dugouts sit down and below the field, so water always collects in those. Of course, once you start messing with that stuff, you're talking about sprinklers and sod and everything. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at there on the softball field. Softball field nets are old and torn up. Nets are expensive. Those are about $800 a piece. We have 4 different hitting stations out there. It's just springtime wind has got them. And since I've been here, they haven't been replaced. So I'm saying they're probably at least 5 years old. Scoreboard at the softball field is a similar situation. For the most part, it works, but if you've been out to a softball game, it's so dim, you can't hardly make out score or inning sometimes. So it's an issue that we need to start looking into addressing. Track and field needs. Wind got our pole vault mats this year. It's what took, pole vault mats are what took out the fence. When it did that, it ripped it up pretty good. Did not know this until I looked into pole vault mats. They're really expensive. You're looking at $15,000 minimum on a pole vault mat, up to $25,000. It's crazy.
So that's under insurance.
You can refurbish those, and you're looking at about a cost of $8,000 roundabout if you choose to refurbish it. But it did get ripped up fairly decent from that fencing. Some issues that just haven't been addressed because they're expensive starting blocks. We're getting low on starting blocks that need to be replaced. Our hurdles have been patchwork replaced, so we don't have a lot of matching hurdles. It'd be nice to get some matching hurdles to sit out there, especially since we host junior high and high school track meets. Tennis, y'all are addressing needs on the tennis courts currently. The way I understand it though is the cracks that they're refinishing for us right now. We're looking at about a 5-year life on that. After that 5 years, we're probably gonna have to ask the question of what we're gonna do after that. So that's something to start looking for, thinking about in terms of money and so on, of sitting back or whatever. We have what we feel like is our priority list that I'll let you look at, go through. The way we prioritize is just number of kids that it affects, and then the severity of the issues. For instance, the softball field, it's just completely unplayable at times. So severity of issues and number of kids that it affects is kind of how we prioritize that. So try to go quick and not take too much time as well, but this is kind of what we're looking at. Is there any questions or anything I can address, or Coach Corsi can address?
So at this time, we haven't had anyone come out and look at those issues on the track, really?
No, sir, we haven't had we didn't have time to get anybody out yet. But we certainly can and will if we need to.
I'd just like to look at that before it gets worse.
Yes, sir.
You know, whether we can afford to fix it or not, I'd like to know what we're up against.
Right.
Looks like something that'll only get worse. All right.